Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Michael Levan. Thank you so much for joining me today. And in this video, this episode of this series, we are going to discuss networking in the cloud. Now, how do you get good at networking in the cloud? Well, first, you have to have some networking experience in general. So if you don't, number one, I highly recommend this book right here. If we go back here, we can see there are a mess of different books that you can essentially choose from. There's this whole Network Plus certification kit. You obviously don't need to get the certification. You just need to learn and understand networking. And this book right here, this is going to teach you CIDR ranges, IPs, subnets, etc. So I do highly recommend getting something like this if you don't have networking experience. Now, again, remember, you don't need to get the certification. With that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the AWS console. When you're at the AWS console, all of your networking starts under VPC, Virtual Private Cloud. Now, what is this? Well, you could kind of think about this as your own data center. And you have a bunch of different things. Your VPC itself is like the data center, and then you have subnets and you have routes and you have internet gateways to get from AWS to the internet. For example, an EC2 instance, if an EC2 instance needs to get out to the internet, it can. You have different Elastic IP options. You have different security options. I'm scrolling down on the left, by the way. Network analysis, so you can actually run these tests to see, oh, can my EC2 instance actually get out to the network? Or, oh, can my subnet actually get out to the network? You have some firewalls here, and then you even have some VPNs, so you can do site-to-site VPNs, all that good stuff. So that is all available inside of AWS. Now, let's go ahead and talk about creating our own network. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit Launch VPC Wizard. Now, this is really cool. This is actually new, to be honest with you guys. You have kind of your VPC settings here, and then you have what it's going to look like over here. So, for instance, a preview, like maybe we want to, I don't know, we'll call this YouTube series. If I can spell series correctly. And then as you can see, it actually changes here. So your VPC, and then if we scroll over, we have our subnets. We have 2 in US East 1A, 2 in US East 1B. All 4 are public. And then you have route tables. And what do route tables do? It allows you to route traffic to resources like EC2 instances, for example. And then you have connections to other networks like your internet gateway. Now, if I scroll back over here, you can also choose VPC only. So it wouldn't create all of this stuff. But we kind of want to create all the stuff because that's what actually is going to create an entire network. So if we scroll down here, we have our name, which we just did. And then we have our CIDR block. So your CIDR block is going to be for your entire virtual private network, your entire VPC, your entire data center. That's going to be the IP address that you have available. And when you create subnets, you have to stay within that CIDR block. Okay, then you can choose some IPv6 options if you want. You can choose tenancy. And then you also have availability zones. So your availability zones are going to be like US East 1A, US East 1B. A and B are 2 different availability zones, and that allows you to have the ability to have high availability. I feel like I just, that was a tongue twister. So next, we can choose the number of public subnets and the number of private subnets. Now, the public subnets are publicly, another tongue twister, the public subnets are publicly accessible over the internet, which means resources from the internet can get to those resources. Now, of course, you're not going to be sharing usernames, passwords, all that good stuff. But if you need to be able to get to these resources, for example, maybe you have a web server running in an EC2 instance, you would want a public subnet attached to that EC2 instance. Next, you can choose the number of private subnets. Now, what that means is resources inside of your VPC, your backend resources, can have access to the resources that are attached to these private subnets like EC2 instances. But you cannot access them via the public internet. Okay, so depending on your use case, you can choose one or the other. It does say 02024 here, but you can add more or you could add less. You could add 1 if you wanted to. It's just not recommended from a high availability standpoint. Next, you have your NAT gateway. And what NAT gateways do is, let's say you have a private EC2 instance in a private subnet. A NAT gateway will allow you to send information to the public internet if your EC2 instance is in a private subnet. I know this is kind of confusing, right? But really, I want to just backtrack here because I feel like this is a little bit confusing. Public subnets, get out to the internet. Private subnets, stay internal. NAT gateway, if you accidentally put an EC2 instance, or maybe not even an accident, maybe it was on purpose. If you put an EC2 instance into a private subnet, a NAT gateway allows you to send traffic outbound to the internet from that EC2 instance. And that's outbound, but resources on the internet cannot send information to that EC2 instance. So it is a one-way. The EC2 instance inside of a private subnet with a NAT gateway can send information to the public internet. It cannot receive. And then you have some VPC endpoints, which can reduce gateway charges. Because yes, it does cost money. And then finally, you have some DNS options. So you can either have DNS host names or you can have DNS resolution. And then we can go ahead and we can click create VPC. And as you can see, this is going to go through and this is going to create everything that we need for our network to become alive. And that was actually incredibly fast. So let's go ahead and click view VPC. And then as you can see, our VPC is available. If we go to subnets, actually we can filter by our VPC. So we'll filter by this VPC right here, our YouTube VPC, and we can see here are our subnets. Here are our route tables. And that's how you can get started with networking inside of AWS. Now, I do highly recommend, again, if you don't know about networking, learn it. Number 2, play around with VPCs in here, play around with different CIDR ranges, etc. Really get used to this inside of AWS. Thank you so much for watching.